Hey guys, welcome back to Welcome Home Custom. Today we are going to learn how to assemble our covered bridge. Let's get started. Okay, so let's jump right into the files first. When you open up your files, you will actually have an option to download one of the 5 formats. I recommend just downloading the format that you wish to use because they are sizable files. So we are going to go into the SVG as an example. You will see that you have instructions for the covered bridge. This is going to include things like your cut settings, what you should be cutting, ignoring, scoring, etc., a definition of the files themselves, and the amount of wood you're going to need. It also includes an example of what you should cut face up or face down, as well as reviewing other things like the DIY size and what to expect when you open those files. So I always recommend that you open this up and look at it before you get started. It also has Color Planner, which is going to help you actually assemble the piece along with a color planner for the DIY so that you can paint it however you wish and then plan out your colors when you want to go and actually paint the DIY size. So you will have separated master and shared line master. Separated master, I'm going to open it up real quick just to show you, but this is so that if you wanted to resize the entire file, make it bigger, or I don't know if I would go much smaller just because some of your trees are pretty small as it is, but you could take this and resize it and make it bigger. So I could select the whole thing. I could resize it. Oops, I missed a piece. And then I could then sort out the pieces based off of the woods I wanted to use. You never want to just load this and go because all of the pieces have their own lines, so you would get a bunch of double cuts. So keep that in mind. Separated master is only for resizing if you want to go a little bit more advanced. Then we have what is called the shared line master. This is for folks that want to just cut the file and go. They don't care about kerf. None of the lines are shared. You can also use this as a backer if you have a larger laser. So we could select the outer perimeter. We could change this to a different color. So as an example, I will change the outside line, let's say to, I don't know, I'll change it to orange. And then I'm going to select now the red. And if I hit shift and click the red, it's going to select all of that red color in Lightburn. And now I can change it all to score. So now I can load this and use this as my backer if I wish to, if I have a larger laser. It is 18 by 24 inches. So let's go ahead and close this out. And I'm going to say File, Import, and we are going to look at all the cut by color. So we have kerf and we have no kerf. No kerf is a cut by color file that I have not adjusted for any kerf allowance. This is for someone that knows their kerf is more advanced and does not want to use the 0.002 inch offset that I have added for the kerf files. So again, no kerf is only for folks that want to adjust their own kerf. Those that don't really understand kerf but still want the tighter fitting pieces, you are going to want to use the kerf files. You will see that we have scored and then we have some that don't say scored at all. The ones that say scored, they are going to have a number off to the side. That is because we want to put the wood face up, good side up in our laser, and we are going to score the details. And then once you are done, when you take the pieces out, I recommend writing this number onto the back of your wood. You also always want to check your 1 inch square and make sure that it reads 1 by 1 inch. And if you've never made a showstopper before, I actually recommend cutting a 1 by 1 inch square. This is simply to check to make sure that your laser is cutting at the same proportion on either side. So as an example, if you measure your 1 inch square you've cut and it says 0.995 by 0.995 inches, then you know that the two sides are equal and it's cutting a square. If it's off, let's say it's 0.995 by 0.04 inches, then there may be something going on with your belts or something to that extent, and you're going to need to tune your laser a bit to be able to cut the cut by color showstoppers. That is the scored file. I know I just went into depth on the 1-inch square, so I apologize on that. Let's go ahead and import the regular walnut, and you'll see what the difference is. Now I have the numbers directly over the top of these pieces. That's so that you can mask the good side of your wood, and we are going to turn it upside down, so good side facing down in your laser, and then you can score the number on the back and cut your wood. Now, if you get flashback on your cuts, then you may want to raise it just a bit off your laser bed or your crumb tray. Or again, you can mask. The other thing you might want to consider doing is playing with your max and min levels on your laser. That will cut back on your flashback that you might be getting. So now let's go ahead and jump on over to assembly. Okay, jump right in. So make sure you have your color planner open. I did go ahead and score the numbers and lines onto my backer, but it's not necessary. You can put it together just using the color planner. I've done it plenty of times. Don't worry. You will also need some tape. I also use a glue tray along with Titebond 3 glue to adhere all of my pieces. My pieces are sorted already. Oh, my backer is so warped. My pieces are sorted already. I sort them 1 through 10, 11 through 20, 20 through 30, etc. to make it easier. I also normally use this quilt frame template to help keep everything square, but because my backer is so warped, I'm not going to be able to use it this time. But the pieces come together pretty easily, so I think it's okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab my stack of 1 through 10 and start placing my pieces down onto the backer. And I will work my way around all of the pieces until I've got them all placed. We are dry fitting, just making sure that we've cut everything the correct way and we haven't misplaced any pieces. So now I will go ahead and speed this up a little bit. One thing to consider is that when you are looking at the number that is scored on the back of the pieces, you are going to want to just flip it over horizontally so that the number is facing upright. You do not want to rotate that number in any direction. If you do, it will not fit. As an example, your windows, once we get to them in the covered bridge, if you try to insert one of those windows in rotated, it probably won't fit. So make sure that you are noting how the number is scored on the back and its orientation. Now, one thing I did decide to do, which I have not tried before, I am using hardwood because my new filter I'm using for my laser does not allow me to use MDF. So I went ahead and grabbed my Marathon rotary tool along with a burr that I believe is a flame burr. And I am just going over my score lines with this burr and taking out large amounts of material just to add to the waves or the lines in the river itself. Now, again, I am tracing over the score lines that are already there, and I probably am going to upgrade the actual burrs that I'm using because I felt like I was still getting a little bit of a rough sanding, but it was still a fun process to try. So I guess the lesson here is don't be afraid to try something new because you never know unless you do. And then I grabbed some of my 400 grit sandpaper and just worked in those sections, just trying to soften them a little bit. Again, I didn't have quite the right attachments to do the best job that I would have liked to do, but I have them on order, and so I'll have to play around with it a little bit more, and we'll film another tutorial at a later date. Again, this is totally optional. It is not necessary. This was just me trying something different and playing around. You can just leave it as regular score lines like I've done in many of my other videos. Okay, so once I got all of the stuff shaped, I actually went through around every single piece on this file. I am going to now tape it up. So what I'm doing is I'm just making sure all of my pieces are somewhat pulled together, and then I am going to start putting strips of tape onto the top of the pieces. This is so that we can hold them in place and do a flip and glue method that I like to do. It makes gluing a lot easier. So as you can see, I went ahead and flipped it over, and I'm spreading glue onto the backer now. And I am going to get it all evenly spread. I want the lines of the spreader to show up in the glue, but I don't want it pooling anywhere. If it's pooling, it means it's probably going to seep up through the cracks. So I go ahead and take off excess if I find any. I then am going to flip that backer right back on top of the piece and then flip the whole thing back over to expose the covered bridge. I then will feel around all the edges to make sure it's lined up and then weigh it down so that the glue can set. Now that my glue is set, I can remove my sandbags, and I can go ahead and also remove all of my tape. I then grabbed my finishing sander and I gave my piece just one more quick sanding before I was going to spray it with my shellac. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching this tutorial. Hopefully it helps you assemble your own covered bridge. Make sure to subscribe and check out other videos just like this. Thanks so much.